Welcome to our study of Excellent Path to Enlightenment. This is a very brief overview of the practice of the Tantric preliminaries. And while it is particular for a short liturgy that is sometimes referred to as the short Longchen Nyingtik Ngöndro, the Excellent Path to Enlightenment, Changchub Lamsang, then this is a ngöndro teaching that is universally applicable. So no matter which ngöndro you're practicing, this is really excellent advice. So presently we've covered the section which is known as the general preliminaries, which are the reflections that turn our mind to the Dharma. And now we are presently within the context of the refuge section. So kindly generate the intention to put this into application for the purpose of establishing all sentient beings on the level of perfect enlightenment. As I've been doing here over this Ngondro course, our studies, just going through some of the lineage persons, we've pretty much completed the 12 Dzogchen teachers, and then I thought to go over some of the individual masters then that we have in our world that have really upheld then the Dzogchen teachings. We talk about three kinds of transmissions. And this particular in the Nyingma context, we talk about the transmissions of between the Buddhas. Then we talk about the transmission between what we call Vidyadharas, and then we talk about the transmission to ordinary individuals. So we sometimes refer to the mind transmission of the Buddhas, the symbolic transmission of the Vidyadharas, and we talk about the whispered or oral lineage of ordinary individuals. So when we talk about the Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya transmissions, this is referred to as the transmission of the Buddhas, the mind transmission. In the case of the transmission, symbolic transmission through among Vidyadharas, then this is transmission which takes place with in principle just symbols or very few words. So the individuals here, they're more than ordinary. They're great masters, and their lives reflect a tremendous existing heritage of wisdom and discipline and so forth, sublime, the qualities of sublime beings. The person I just wanted to present today is known as Sri Singha, and there is actually a not too long biography in the history, the Dzogchen history of Nyoshu Khyentse Rinpoche. So I'm just going to read through that. But this is Sri Singha to your left. And it says then, during those times, and we're talking it's a little bit difficult with the history here. I think Western and Tibetan scholarship might differ. We speak about Garab Dorje being born shortly after the passing of the Buddha. Sri Singha was then a student of Garab Dorje's student Manjushri Mitra. So we are talking, in the Tibetan tradition, we're talking well before the Common Era. Anyway, it says, during those times, in a Chinese city called Shocham Nakpo, a son was born to the householder Gyodang Dempe Yichen and his wife Nangsel Raptu Chenden. This boy became known as the great master Sri Singha. Beginning at the age of 15, he studied the 5 fields of knowledge, Sanskrit grammar, valid cognition, astrology, and so on, with the master Hari Hastibala, and became very proficient. One day, while he was traveling On the road to the city of settling, the exalted Avalokiteshvara appeared in the sky and advised him, fortunate one, if you definitely seek the goal in this single lifetime, go to the charnel ground of Sosadvipa, to the west of the Vajra seat in India. Having said this, the deity vanished. Now, the Vajra seat, that's Bodh Gaya. Sri Singha thought, in order to realize the goal of the secret mantra approach, I shall spend 7 years studying the outer and inner meanings of the tantric approach. He thus studied with the outcast master Belakirti in the east, on the 5-peak mountain of Utai Shan, thoroughly mastering the tantras, explanatory commentaries, and pith instructions according to the outer and inner levels of the tantric path. So remember, Sri Singha is basically viewed as being Chinese. So he went to Utai Shan, 5-peak mountain, and studied there. One morning, as Sri Singha was bathing in a pond, the supremely compassionate Avalokiteshvara appeared again and gave him similar advice, then vanished. Sri Singha thought, it's difficult to travel to India. I shall therefore go after I have achieved the yogic ability to move swiftly. With this intention, he practiced for 3 years, and after having gained accomplishment, made the journey to India using the miraculous power to move swiftly, his body a yard above the ground. In 9 days, he reached the great charnel ground of Sosadvipa, where he encountered the eminent master Manjushri Mitra. Now, actually, this city of moving quickly, it's documented by Alexander David Neal and mentioned in various places. And even in the present day, Changnam Rinpoche from Shichen Monastery said there are still masters in Tibet. At his monastery in Tibet, until recent time, they still practice this, where part of the training is actually competing with horses. You have to run quicker than a horse can gallop. That's part of that training. So Sri Singha prostrated to Manjushri Mitra and circumambulated him with the request, please take me under your care. The master agreed to do so and granted him instructions, prophesying as well that Sri Singha would recover the text that Manjushri Mitra had concealed. When Manjushri Mitra passed away, now Manjushri Mitra, again, this is the student of Garab Dorje, who we consider the first human teacher of the Dzogchen teaching. So Garab Dorje's student was Manjushri Mitra. Manjushri Mitra is then the master that Sri Singha sought out. When Manjushri Mitra passed away, dissolving into a mass of light in the sky above the charnel ground, Sri Singha cried out in distress, alas, oh woe! Thereupon, out of the sky, fell a jeweled locket containing the testament of Manjushri Mitra, the 6 meditative experiences. Then the master Sri Singha retrieved the text that Manjushri Mitra had concealed in the boulder at Bodh Gaya and returned with them to the vicinity of the Bodhi tree growing in China. He divided these texts concerning the most sublime secret into 4 cycles, the outer, inner, secret, and most secret, unsurpassed cycles. He concealed the first 3 cycles in the capital of a pillar in the temple of Tashichingo. He kept the final cycle, but, in keeping with the Dakini's prophecies, later concealed it in the same place and so caused it to disappear. He then went to the great charnel ground of Sijin. It is from Sri Singha that Vimala Mitra and Jana Sutra heard these teachings. So Sri Singha was rather important for the Dzogchen teaching in Tibet because he was the master of these two, Vimala Mitra and Jana Sutra, who were great Indian masters. Vimala Mitra traveled to Tibet and is one of the what we call 3 great vehicles of the Dzogchen teachings. The 2 other are Padmasambhava and the translator Verochana. So we can read about these masters. Their life stories sort of exist in various lengths in different places. So this is Sri Singha. And then in our text, we presently are then in the refuge. So last time we looked at what is the object of the refuge, and these are then generally we always, across the whole, the whole range of the various Buddhist traditions, everyone takes refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And but in the Vajrayana, then we also have then the inner aspect of these, which is a more profound way of taking refuge, and is based then on the resultant approach. The three jewels have an inner aspect known as the three roots: the guru or teacher, who is the root of blessing; the yidam deity, who is the root of accomplishment; and the dakini, who is the root of enlightened activity. So in Vajrayana practice, then the guru is the one that enables us to encounter the co-emergent wisdom, and on the basis of this, then the Vajrayana path takes the whole scope of wisdom as its foundation. So at that point, then enlightenment is no longer sought external and is realized as innate. And the yidam deity is the method really of realizing this, taking as skillful means our particular phenomena. So the yidam is very much the discipline. Yidam literally means actually commitment, and also in the Mahayana we see the word yidam as essentially synonymous with the bodhisattva vow. It's the bodhisattva commitment. But in the Vajrayana, then yidam and the deity is seen as the Buddha nature that's abiding, and typically then the student will receive a particular practice that is his or her that's aligned with his or her disposition. One might or might not do something that's particular for oneself, or else also it's very common to practice yidam practice just according to a sort of a path that's prescribed, pretty much the same for all the various practitioners. For example, in the Nyingma tradition, then it's almost everybody practices Vajrakilaya. So even though you could say some people have a particular disposition for that practice, then it is also something that is seen as quintessentially profound, because it's for the very nature of its practice, and also so because this is something that so many masters in the lineage have practiced. So that's the way of engaging then enlightenment in terms of engaging this through meditation, through what's then in the Vajrayana called sadhana. And then there's dakini, who's the root of enlightened activity. And there we would say, for those who have pure samaya, then the force of wisdom, the dakini, the dakini nature, we associate this with the female principle, but we also, under dakini, we include the category of dharma protectors. So for those who keep pure samaya and so forth, then they are assisted by the dakini as something that enables the enlightened activity. Now it goes for all of these three aspects, that these are also practices that are associated with sadhana. So you have sadhana for the guru, sadhana of the yidam, and sadhana of the dakinis. Now, regardless of what I'm saying here, if this is new to you, don't worry too much about it. This will all sort of come along the way. But we do regard then these inner aspects of the three jewels as the object of refuge in the Vajrayana. And Khyentse Rinpoche goes on to say, although their names are different, these three do not in any way differ from the three jewels. The guru is the Buddha, the yidam is the Dharma, and the dakinis and protectives are the sangha. So this is the simple way of seeing the three roots. And on the innermost level, like we looked at last time, the three kayas. On the innermost level, the Dharmakaya is the Buddha, the Sambhogakaya is the Dharma, and the Niyamanakaya is the Sangha. So all of these objects of refuge, these are the unclouded, the undiluted, these are expressions or aspects of the undiluted, enlightened nature of reality. So the Buddha, someone who has realized it, and then the Dharma, the teaching on the nature of this reality, and then the Sangha, all those who are practicing and engaging in this path. So when we take refuge, we do so with a sense of the trouble we have been in, and it's taking refuge really comes from this understanding of seeking safety. So samsara is a very unsafe place. We might have a half decent, all right experience in samsara, but again, we are in the human realm particularly fortunate, and our worries and sufferings, even though we have them, and that's also one of the benefits of the human realm, is that we're not completely caught up in just bliss or distraction. Even so, presently we might not experience that much suffering, but the nature of samsara with the dualistic mind and so forth is painful and results in tremendous suffering. So when we take refuge, it's very much with this sense of seeking protection, and hence also the name, taking refuge. Khyentse Rinpoche goes on to say, to take refuge, visualize an object of refuge in front of you. You should not visualize an object of refuge in front of you. So we very often talk about the refuge tree, or the assembly of all those, like the three jewels and the three roots and so on. You should not perceive your environment as the ordinary or impure world, but as a pure Buddha field in which all is perfect, with its golden ground, wish-fulfilling trees, lakes of nectar, and jewel mountains. So here again, when we visualize the place as perfect, this is a way in which we align ourselves with the innate purity of phenomena. So we're not just imagining things to be something that they're not. It is recollecting the innate purity of nature. And the visualization of things according to the convention of what we think is beautiful, like the golden ground and so forth, jewel mountains and all of that, and even though it's not particularly according to maybe some of our cultural conventions of what's beautiful, the main point really is that we see the environment as being strikingly and vividly beautiful, something that gives us great joy, but also remembering that the nature of our external reality innately is pure. All the sounds there, even the songs of birds and the rustling of leaves, are the sounds of mantras and praises to the Buddhas. Merely tasting the nectar like water induces deep states of meditation. In the center of this Buddha field, visualize an immeasurable wish-fulfilling tree in full bloom. It is made of precious substances, the trunk and branches of jewels, the leaves of gold, and the fruits and flowers of different gems. Between the branches hang garlands of coral, pearl, amber, turquoise, and so forth, with tiny bells, their clear tones voicing the teachings of the Dharma. So I'm assuming everybody is doing ngöndro here, and hence you each in your particular ngöndro have access to the illustrations of the refuge tree. Some people say, oh, it's difficult to visualize all these things, and you don't have to. It's if you can remember these things and you can visualize, it enhances the vivid presence of the refuge, so it can be a help to visualize. But the main thing really that we're doing when we're taking refuge is this sense of wishing to find safety from the confusion of samsara and recognizing then the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, three roots, etc. Then going for refuge with that earnest sense of wishing to be protected, ourselves and all sentient beings. And we can, to have an object out there that we seek refuge. Otherwise, it becomes too philosophical and too abstract. So, if we can visualize the Buddha, the refuge tree, and the Buddha field as it's prescribed here, that's really helpful. But otherwise, we can also just visualize the teacher, our guru, as there. And if we don't have a particular teacher, then simply visualize the Buddha. But have some object out there. Anyway, here we do explain this in terms of the refuge tree. And Khyentse Rinpoche goes on to say the tree has a central trunk and 4 main branches. Upon the central trunk is a throne made of various jewels and supported by 8 fearless lions. On the throne is a multicolored lotus, and on the lotus a sun disk and a moon disk. So you have this seat that you could say projects the fearless quality of enlightenment, or celebrates that, the great throne. And then you have a multicolored lotus on that, and then a disk of the sun, the disk of the moon. Anyway, you all know this. Upon the moon disk, seated in a luminous expanse of rainbow light, smiling radiantly, full of wisdom and compassion, is your root teacher, the one for whom you have the strongest natural devotion, in the form of the precious lotus-born Guru, Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, and so forth. In the sky above are all the teachers of the lineage of the 3 transmissions. And these are the three transmissions I was talking about before: the mind transmission of the Buddhas, symbolic transmission of the Vijayasaras, and oral transmission of ordinary individuals. So these masters are then the ones that are in the space above when we're in the refuge tree. If you're doing the Kyabje ngöndro, then there's a refuge tree is very large, and then they're seated throughout the crown of the tree. But anyway, like I said before, the different lineages have different ways of presenting this, but they're all more or less the same. So with the lineages above, with the masters of the lineage above, then they begin with the primordial Buddha, Samantabhadra, at the top, and all the way down to Guru Rinpoche himself. On either side are all the great teachers of the Nyingma, Kyabje, Sakya, and Gelug lineages for whom you feel devotion. So it's completely okay to have teachers in the other lineages, and also you might think of masters, great masters in the past that were a great inspiration, the Sakya Pandita or the Karmapa or Jetsongkhapa and so on. Of the tree's 4 main branches, the front one bears Buddha Shakyamuni, surrounded by 1,002 Buddhas of this fortunate eon, dressed in the 3 monastic robes, glorious and radiant with the 32 major and 80 minor marks of an enlightened Buddha, the protuberance on the crown of his head, the 3 markings on the palms of the hands and soles of the feet, and so forth. So we'd say the Buddhas have these particular features, the 32 major and the 80 minor marks. And if you can't visualize the 1,000 Buddhas, then just visualize the Buddha, so the 3 times, or just the Buddha, that's okay. On the right branch are the heart sons of the Buddha, the 8 great bodhisattvas, Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, Vajrapani, and so on, and all the other bodhisattvas of the Mahayana, the great vehicle. They are adorned with the 5 silken garments and the 8 jewel ornaments of the Sambhogakaya. They are standing facing forward in readiness to benefit beings. So that's to the right of Guru Rinpoche. On the left branch is the noble community, the Sangha of the lesser vehicle, led by Shariputra and Moggallana, Lord Buddha's 2 principal disciples, and with the 16 arhats, the 8 great staviras, and the whole sangha of the lesser vehicle, sitting in different meditation postures and holding begging bowls and mendicant staff. On the rear branch are all the scriptures of the 3 vehicles, stacked upon a jeweled shrine, the titles facing us. They spontaneously emanate the sound of the Sanskrit vowels and consonants. These are the A, I, I, U, and so forth, Kaka, Gaga, Na, Cha, Cha, Ja, Ja, Nya, and so on, as well as the teachings of the transcendent wisdom, the Prajnaparamita, and all the Mahayana Sutras. These scriptures symbolize both the Dharma of transmission, the written teachings themselves, and the Dharma of realization, the qualities of enlightenment. So there's these 2 kinds of transmission. One is the actual information that we have in all these books, but then also they symbolize then the transmission of Dharma that comes down to us, also in terms of the actual realized, manifested qualities of the Dharma, that the Dharma is something living. So in this way, with the Buddha in the front, the Sangha to the left and the right, and the Dharma in the back, we have then the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. All around in the sky and in between the branches are the herukas of the 6 classes of Tantras, gathering like clouds, together with the Dakas, Dakinis, and protectors of the Dharma. The Dakas and Dakinis literally is generally understood as Ngondro and ngöndro Ma, which are then the Vajrayana Sangha. And so they generally, we also sometimes call them Pao and Pamo, which means warriors, viras, and so forth. Warriors, essentially the quality of courage and sort of fearlessness in the yogic practice. So they're very often depicted as very lightly clad, maybe just naked, with the bone ornaments and skull tiaras and tridents or bells and damarus and so on. So these are the Vajrayana Sangha, but also they are also seen as those that assist those practicing, the Vajrayana yogis. And this category also then includes the protectors of the Dharma. So when we have this in the refuge tree, then very often these are all arranged sort of below and sort of along the circumference of the lotus. So there we have these Dakas and Dakinis, protectors. The male protectors, like Gompo Maning, so these are the various Mahakalas. Maning is a Mahakala. Legden, the forearm Mahakala, the 6th arm Mahakala, and so forth. These are the Mahakalas. And then we also have the guardian of Samya. That's Dorje Legpa, Bhadra Sadhu, and Rahula and others. And these all face outward to ward off obstacles to your practice. Now the female protectors, such as Ekajati, Siddhingma, and others, face inward to prevent the blessings and accomplishments from being lost to the outside. So these are the various protectors. All these deities and spiritual teachers fill the whole of space, just like bees swarming from a hive that had just been broken open. You should visualize them very clearly transparent and vivid, as though made of rainbow light, radiating wisdom, compassion, and strength. So considering that they fill all of space is simply just that we engage this sense of just that they completely stop our mind, that there is this presence, this huge presence that takes up all of space of the power and the qualities and so forth of the refuge. So they're there, vivid, and even though they're vivid, we also see them as transparent because they don't have the quality of confusion. In our confusion, we think of phenomena as something that we can grasp and hold. But the very nature of these, the object of refuge, is that they're not caught by any of this. And to indicate that while they manifest, They have nothing objectifiable or graspable or solid about them. They are manifest and yet ungraspable, like rainbow light. So they possess then these three qualities that we associate with enlightenment: wisdom, compassion, and strength. Okay? No questions? Okay. One question. My guru Yidam and Dakini, can that actually be the case? Intuitively it seems so. Likewise, is the guru the three kayas too? My guru Yidam and Dakini, can that actually be the case? Well, in the sense that it's our Buddha Dharma Sangha, our guru. Not sure I understand the question. Guru Yidam and Dakini. So we have to remember that when we are talking about the refuge, they're all gathered in the teacher. So, like I said earlier, if we can't visualize all of the various aspects of the refuge, then simply just visualizing the teacher, that's good enough. So in that sense, what we call the three roots, the three jewels, the three kayas, they're all embodied in the teacher. So the question is, likewise, is the guru the three kayas too? Yes. So the guru is the Buddha Dharma Sangha. The guru is the guru, what's it called, Guru Deva and Dakini, and also the three kayas. You mentioned whispered lineage is for ordinary beings. What do you mean? Whispered lineage, also Dakini lineage? There's various kinds of transmissions, but when we say the whispered lineage for ordinary beings, it operates within the conventions of ordinary language, whereas in the case of great masters like Sri Singha teaching Padmasambhava, he would just point, he's depicted here pointing to the sky. And on the occasion on teaching the nature of mind to Padmasambhava, he just pointed to the sky. And he just said something very sort of pithy, like empty, completely empty, just something that is not as elaborate as when we have the whispered lineage for ordinary beings. Then there's actual teachings as we have it. Yeah. So, for example, the teachings that we receive then come down through this lineage. But it's something that, like for example, Dunjum Lingpa, the first Dunjum Rinpoche, he received teachings like according to the Vijayadhara symbolic lineage, and also, undoubtedly, our masters also received these on that level, and also the wisdom transmission of the Buddhas. Third question: was Manjushri Mitra actually Manjushri? Well, we say that Manjushri manifests in so many different kinds, so Manjushri Mitra would have been one of the manifestations of the Bodhisattva Manjushri. So I hope that answers that. Then somebody asked, what does Alikali mean? Alikali is the Sanskrit alphabet. So it's like we say ABC. So Alikali is just same as saying ABC in Sanskrit. But the Sanskrit alphabet is very interesting, and it's also the basis for all mantra, in that it's the Sanskrit really comes from the sages that could perceive the subtle sound of the universe and also the subtle body. So all the mantras and the chanting of the Sanskrit alphabet is invoking this subtle quality, this subtle dimension of purity within the realm of sound. And then somebody is notifying us that there is there's an article by Khyentse Rinpoche in the Lion's Roar, Buddhist visualization. Practice is pure, clear, and vibrant. So maybe try and have a look in there. in terms of instructions for visualization. I know that in the beginning I won't be able to visualize all that, and in visualizing just the teacher is okay. Yeah, definitely, yeah. But should I try to visualize it all with time? Like always go back to the description of the complete image and absorb a little bit more? Yes. Do that, not in the sense of pushing forward, and it is very much just about, it's something that grows organically as you're appreciating the teacher. Then naturally the detail just comes naturally joyfully. You know, like you might look at this tanka, for example, of Sri Singha, and somehow be mesmerized or captivated by the quality of the image, right? And then just think, as we're meditating, then sort of introduce this dimension of, you know, some of the details in the tanka might be something that invokes a particular atmosphere. So in this way, the details, they can gradually become something that enhances the practice. Is there a difference between calling Lama Khyentse 3 times and visualizing as you're describing here? I'm finding calling the Lama Khyentse has a subtle effect that still feels connecting. Should I stick with that if it seems to be working? Yes. I mean, you can do all sorts of things, and that's definitely fine. You know, anything that works. But I would say when you're doing the refuge practice, then stick with the particular liturgy, right? The meaning is the same, but at the same time, when we're doing the various practices, whether it's the refuge or the bodhicitta, and they all have a particular objective and particular emphasis. So while there's an overall intention that's brought home through actually something as essential as the calling the Lama and the practice of chanting Lama Khyentse, while that's sort of the foundation, then the details of the various aspects of the ngöndro are quite helpful. And somebody's wishing us a good Sagadawa. We are now in the fourth lunar month, which is Sagadawa. It's a particular auspicious time to practice. We say that during the Sagadawa, which is celebrated because it's a month in which the Buddha attained enlightenment, and also the when he passed away in Nirvana. So this is regarded as particular auspicious time to practice. If wisdom can be built up by reading sutra, compassion can be generated naturally. How can I build up strength? Sometimes just feel that I have no power to solve all the problems. Well, this is the nature of samsara, that we are powerless. We are overwhelmed by our confusion. And so taking refuge is really the remedy for that. So particularly on the theme of what we're doing right now, what we're looking at right now, then when we have this feeling of being overwhelmed, that we need more strength and so forth, taking refuge, that does it. So we can practice in so many different ways. We can read sutras in the post-meditation, and we can do many different practices, of course. But here then, since we're studying the taking refuge, then we can consider that taking refuge is something that enables us to overcome all various kinds of problems that we have. Samsara by nature is pain, is problems. We have a basic delusion, the delusion of being caught up in this sense of me and all the afflictions and patterns that come from that, and being continually driven by this. But at the same time, this is just a delusion. And so wisdom in some way is not about building up something more and more and more, but it's more really of us connecting with reality as it is. But through the practice, we can do this, and that is where we are. It appears that we're building something up or we're generating something, but we're really just uncovering what is underneath. So there's so many different ways that we do this, and all the 84,000 different teachings of the Buddha essentially are intended to accomplish this. But with the taking of refuge, we're covered. Consider that you're standing in front of the object of refuge, facing it with your father with your father in this life on your right and your mother on your left. Behind you and to the sides are all the beings of the 6 realms, all beings with us, while in front are all those whom you perceive as enemies. So this is a good training for patience. Like, we might have persons that annoy us or irritate us, and they're the ones that are right in front of us. We needn't make a big fuss out of this. It's not as if we then sort of go, he, now I'm gonna, tease my ego and all of that. It's just we unnecessarily are caught up in all sorts of dislikes, and it's not really good. It's something that we need to get over, but we need to be effective in getting over it. And so we do put them in front of us, and we do consider then that they're there, and it is something that we are supposed to get over. And we want to do this then as part of the mind training, that we have them then in front of us, and they might even block the view somewhere, but they're there, and they're taking refuge along with us. We have a sense that everybody is included, even those that we dislike. And particularly also then our parents, who, as far as this life goes, they're the ones who brought us into this existence. So with their body, they imagine that all these beings follow your lead. With their bodies, they show respect by prostrating together to the object of refuge. With their speech, they recite the refuge prayer. And with their minds, they generate complete confidence and faith in the object of refuge. So everybody's together in doing this, applying the 3 dimensions of our beings, with it's our body, our speech, and also our energy, and our mind. And this is permeated by this atmosphere of trust and having found safety, having found protection. We should take refuge with the vast attitude of the Mahayana, taking refuge not only for this lifetime, but until we attain enlightenment, not only for our own sake, but in order to bring all sentient beings to enlightenment. The verse one actually recites then is, homage until the enlightenment of myself and all beings, I take refuge in the 3 roots. Namo dalsodroken chamchubat sawasumla chapsuchi shindun sande tobje chir manju dundam jansan che. So, or actually it's just the first 2 lines. But reciting this, we can do it. Some people like to recite it in the Tibetan. This was written in Tibetan, but some people will say there's a lot of blessing in that, and some people will also say there's a lot of blessing in knowing what it is that we're chanting. Just these days I was here with Khenpo Chögying Dorje, and he's really keen on actually people chanting in English, in the language that they understand. He says, look, this is what the Tibetans do. The Tibetans weren't chanting in Sanskrit, right? So we do this, and we do this while we do prostrations normally. Yeah. Now in the ngöndro we do it by time, but here of course it talks about the 100,000 times. Khyentse Rinpoche says, recite the refuge prayer 100,000 times while doing the same number of prostrations. In practice, as explained in the instructions with the root text, one recites here the 4-line verse, which also includes the 2 lines for generating bodhicitta. At the end, these 2 lines, they will come just down a bit further in the text, but when we're doing that, then also the main emphasis, if you were counting, would more be on the 100,000 prostrations, and you would just continually keep reciting the refuge prayer. However, if you're doing by time, then just recite the refuge and also do the prostrations. This should probably take up, at least sort of 80% of the session time. So it's not like we just get up and do a few prostrations. When we're doing the ngöndro, there has to be this effort, and we are we are doing, essentially, most of the session we are doing the prostrations. So there should be this, this physical dimension of it. At the end of each session, visualize rays of wisdom light emanating from the entire object of refuge, touching you and all sentient beings, purifying all your suffering and obscurations, and bringing about the birth of wisdom in your minds. So the conclusion is the refuge tree radiates light and uncovers, purifies all our gross and subtle obscurations, and the natural ground of our being, wisdom, becomes manifest. Then, like a flock of birds startled by a stone thrown into their midst, you all fly up towards the refuge and dissolve into Guru Rinpoche. The lineage gurus, yidams, dakinis, and protectors melt into light and dissolve into Guru Rinpoche, who becomes even more radiant, the dazzling embodiment of all the Buddhas present in space. Finally, like a rainbow vanishing in the sky, Guru Rinpoche himself dissolves into luminous, empty space. Remain for a while in this state. So we have this reference point of Guru Rinpoche. We no longer see Guru Rinpoche as outside. We dissolve into Guru Rinpoche. And while we sustain this sense of Guru Rinpoche, then at the end also we let go of even that reference point. And at that point we just remain simple, just settling, allowing the mind to settle. We don't do it for a particularly long time, and it's really just more to establish a sense of just the simplicity as being the ground of everything that we're doing. So you could say from this ground of purity, compassionately all the display of enlightenment manifests, and again it dissolves into this basic ground. Khyentse Rinpoche says, the expanse of void luminosity, meaning it's empty of anything that we can grasp, and yet it's the ground for everything that manifests. And everything that manifests is not obscured in its essential nature. So we'd say this ungraspable nature is manifesting luminously as all the natural display of enlightened phenomena. Now all of that, the whole dimension of this quality of enlightenment, he says, is nothing but the nature of your mind. Remaining in that state of utter simplicity will bring you to the realization that the void nature of mind is the Dharmakaya, that its expression, luminosity or wisdom, is the Sambhogakaya, and that its manifestation, all-pervading compassion, is the Niyamanakaya. So when we're settling, then it's simplicity. We don't really need to think, oh yeah, this is the Dharmakaya, this is Sambhogakaya, this is the Niyamanakaya. It's more to understand that within that simplicity, everything is there. We needn't search for something else. So the practice of meditation is so important when we're practicing the path. We need to make this part of what we're doing. We can't just say, oh yeah, that's something, that we do later, or we also might get bored. We might want something to happen. We don't want just simplicity, but it is important that we begin to connect with the practice of meditation, the simplicity of it, particularly in Vajrayana, because there's a lot of phenomena, a lot of things that we focus on. It's so important that we come back to just the simplicity, the unity of shamatha and vipassana. So within that simplicity, then everything, the ground is experienced, and what we bring to this is the recognition that within this condition, everything is naturally perfect. Khyentse Rinpoche says, you will realize that the object of refuge, the three jewels, is not something outside you, but naturally present within your mind. This is the ultimate refuge. So, according to our convention and our disposition, we visualize the refuge in all its various aspects because we do look for safety outside. We do look for enlightenment outside. But at the same time, what the path is telling us is that we have this. And so the skillful means is then, with the dissolution at the end, that we begin to have some understanding of what the ultimate refuge is. When we take refuge, just as for any other practice or action we may perform, we need to apply 3 supreme methods. First, as a preparation, we should have the intention to do the practice for the sake of all sentient beings. Second, we must concentrate fully on the practice itself. Lastly, we should dedicate the merit for the sake of all beings. So these 3, we hear about them again and again and again, because they really are what enables us to engage wholeheartedly in what we're doing and to have no regrets. It is to act without a selfish agenda, to have the intention of benefiting others, and then to just carry through whatever action we're doing without second guessing it, and then at the end, whatever benefit, giving it away. So this makes whatever we do, makes it something great. Here, as the preparation, we think that we're going to take refuge for the benefit of all sentient beings. As the main part, we take refuge with full concentration, having total confidence in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and in the Guru, the Yidam deity, and the Dakinis. Confidence means that even if we suffer from heat or cold, or are struck by illness, unhappiness, or other sufferings, we will always rely only on the 3 jewels and the 3 roots. We will not renounce them under any circumstances, even if we risk losing our lives. At that point, our taking refuge has become genuine. So this is where this becomes the place in ourselves that we have, where we have yes, confidence, where we rely. This is what really is what we need to have to come back to. The outer circumstances of our world and our self, our body, and so forth, is completely uncertain. So we might go broke, we might become diagnosed with a terminal illness. Countless unwanted circumstances can strike us. And we have then the object of refuge as that point of safety that we come back to. And it's not just a sense of poor me and there's something greater, but actually it's the recognition that innately our nature is unconditional, indestructible, and possesses all the qualities of enlightenment. But it is that, you could say, intelligent assessment of our basic being that we then that we invoke through the practice of taking refuge, and then sustains us throughout any conditions we might encounter. Once you have taken refuge in the fully enlightened Buddha, do not seek refuge in celestial beings, gods, or of wealth or power, elemental forces, spirits, stars, mountains, and the like, for none of these transcend samsara. So this is a little bit sort of more according to the conventions of traditional Buddhist societies, where there's a very keen awareness of all sorts of great powers. But then again, we also take refuge in the modern society in all sorts of just our comfort and distractions or fun or all sorts of gimmicks that can provide temporary refuge, and that's fine as long as we don't regard it as an ultimate refuge. As statues or paintings are the representations of the Buddha's form, treat such images, even a fragment from a broken statue, with respect, and keep them in a clean, elevated space. So these sacred representations, they are external manifestations of enlightenment, and we should treat them like that. They represent this dimension that is not ordinary. Once you have taken refuge in the Dharma, you should give up all forms of violence towards other sentient beings. For the root of Dharma is the wish to benefit others. As the scriptures are the support of Dharma and can lead us to enlightenment, never step over books or avoid even stepping over any kind of writing, even a single letter of the alphabet, for it can form part of a Buddha's name. You should not treat written material in a casual way or put it anywhere dirty, but keep it somewhere high up. If you have to dispose of it, burn it in a clean place. So we definitely would particularly, we don't put Dharma books on the floor, we don't step over Dharma books, we don't put them under our chair, etc., etc. Some lamas, they will even under their shoes, they'll scrape off the name just because there's something written there. They don't want to be walking on something written. So there's various ways of doing this, but it is about seeing then the written form as something that potentially is sacred. Once you have taken refuge in the Sangha, you should avoid associating with people whose views and way of life are completely contrary to the Dharma. Respect the Hinayana Sangha of monks and nuns and the Mahayana Sangha of bodhisattvas and have confidence in them. Of course, in the modern world, it's difficult to avoid associating with people who don't particularly share the views of the path of enlightenment, and as a consequence, also their ways of life are very often contrary to this, you can say, knowledge. That's unavoidable, but at the same time, so to avoid is difficult, and I don't even think it necessarily is something we'd want to do in the sense of seeing them as being sort of threatening our path. At the same time, we also shouldn't buy into their ignorance. So we should, of course, just mingle, just go along with whatever is happening without being deeply distracted by them. So. Okay. So these are the three. When you take refuge, then there's these three vows actually that have to do with the Buddha. Once having taken refuge in the enlightened Buddha, having taken refuge in the Dharma, and having taken refuge in the Sangha. So there's these three commitments, three aspects of commitments. So beautiful to see Donald Trump taking refuge. I see somebody's putting Donald Trump up there. Let's see here. Wisdom. Does Guru Rinpoche dissolve via the seed syllable? No, there's no. That's more in the tantric sadhana that you have the aspects of the seed syllables there. No, there's no reference to that here. How long do we rest in that simplicity after dissolution? I would say about 5% of the session. And if we're doing 2 hours, even less. So not that long. And it's also, we sort of want to keep it fresh. So after a while, then we once we begin to sort of, I would say just 5, max 10 minutes. Yeah. When we're practicing in groups, when we practice meditation in groups, of course, then we sit, like we often do here in Australia and in the meditation context, we sit for 20, 10, 20, these kind of sessions, because we're doing it together. But if we're doing it alone, then what we can very often do is just sit short periods and all throughout the day, these short moments of meditation. So at the end of the session here, where the emphasis is mainly on the taking refuge and the prostrations, then just not particularly long time. Are the webinar recordings course material posted on Dropbox? If so, could you share the link? Yes, it is. When I send out the mail with the links to the registration for the webinar, if you got in here, you would have gotten a I don't know, maybe they're also on the website, huh? That's right. Maybe we should put, because when I send the mails out to people with the registration link, there's also the link to the Dropbox. But I recently saw that these links for registration, they're also on the website. So I have to make sure that they are also on the website. Okay, I'll look into that. But other than that, if you haven't gotten the link for the Dropbox, just shoot me a mail and I'll send it to you. Jakob, Jakob, at si.org.au. Didn't you receive teachings from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche? Would be so nice to hear some stories along with this study, if possible. Okay. Are Khenpo's precious webinars also available in Dropbox? Yes, they are. And I think, in fact, on Siddhartha Intent website now, there's links to the recordings. But yeah, I should look into having the Dropbox, the links to the Dropbox for these sessions also maybe posted up there. Yeah. Okay, if I think of any stories on Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, I'll let you know. It's a bit like when people say, "Can you tell a joke?" and then they sort of go, "Oh, what should I tell?" You know. Anyway, okay, I'll keep it in mind. All right. So thank you very much for joining me here, broadcasting from rainy Rosebery in Sydney. Okay, all the best for your practice, dedication. Through this virtue may all beings throughout existence awaken together without a single being left behind. In the pure realm of the luminous essence, the ground of the great perfection, may they remain inseparable from the kayas and wisdoms. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we are born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the holy gurus and practice the Dharma throughout the day and night. Realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning, may we cross the ocean of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others, without partiality or bias, may all attain Buddhahood together.